Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Locker Room here on SBTV. Joining me today for the final show of the semester is Ben Zitouni and Jacob Sennholz. Guys, only 2 more weeks left in the semester. Are you guys looking to finish up strong here?
I'm trying. Like you said, it's only 2 weeks, but I'm ready for summer vacation. It's been a long year, crappy weather.
Too much crappy weather.
Yeah, everything seems to be piling up at the end of the semester, but I'm ready for a couple months off, enjoying the sunshine, going to the beach, grilling out, Brewer games, all that fun summer stuff.
Yeah, I'm sad that this is going to be the last show, but I'm looking forward to a lot of the same thing Ben was mentioning, especially the Brewer games. I'm going to make it to quite a few this summer, I feel like. So finally all the snow is gone.
Thank God.
Baseball's happening now, and yeah, I'm ready for summer.
I'm excited, and you know what? I think we can get through it. It's definitely going to be a time to work hard and get ready to rest up. So on today's show, we'll cover Pointers baseball and softball, recap the NFL draft and what the Packers did, look at the NHL and NBA playoffs, and do a quick round of buy or sell. Diving right into the show, the Pointers baseball team has continued to play some great baseball this year, as this past weekend they swept Conferenceville Illinois Institute of Technology in 2 doubleheaders this weekend, winning all 4 games. In a season that has been difficult because of weather, the Pointers stand in second in the WIAC standings with a record of 14-4 in conference play. The Pointers play a doubleheader today at Concordia University as they continue to wind down the season. Guys, looking at this team so far and what they've done, how much of a surprise have they been this year?
I don't think it's very much of a surprise. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's Coach Jershely's 3rd season with the team now.
3rd season.
Yeah, and usually in sports, 2nd or the 3rd season is where the coach can get his own players recruiting class-wise, get them into the fold and get them into the program. I'm not really surprised. I think that they could have struggled with the lack of playing weather, being able to play, crappy weather, snow, rain, and all that. But it hasn't really surprised me. They have a lot of senior players, juniors and seniors, players that are playing well, especially where it counts. And the starting rotation, the pitching in general has been nothing short of amazing this season.
I agree, Jake.
Yeah, they just have a lot of experienced players on this team, a lot of talent on this team as well. And as Ben briefly mentioned, I think that the key through all this has been their pitching, especially when you got to play those doubleheaders and as many doubleheaders as they've had to play. It can be tough on a pitching rotation, and you need your guys to be on top of their game and going as deep into the games as possible, and especially in order to come out of all those doubleheaders with wins. So I think that has been the key all season. Obviously, the bats have been going too, but the pitching staff has really carried this team.
I agree, and you know there's that old saying that good pitching always beats good hitting, and the Pointers, especially too, have been putting up some great numbers at the plate. Definitely getting a lot of runs on there. They play a lot of small ball too, which is pretty common in baseball. What we see of like teams in professionals, such as the St. Louis Cardinals, just getting guys on base and pretty much driving in the next guy up. And you know, just to also mention quickly here that they were predicted to finish about 5th in the conference this year for baseball, and right now they're sitting in 2nd place right now, and the conference tournament has been canceled, you know, later on this year because of the weather and, you know, just trying to get all these games in for the rest of the way. So if the Pointers could finish off the season at the end of the year in 1st place in the conference, I think it'll be a surprise and a little bit of a giant expectation, I think, for this team going forward in the future as well. Do you guys, just real quickly, do you guys think they could finish the season off at number 1 in the conference?
I think they do. I think they definitely can. As you said, they're sitting at number 2 right now. They're playing with a lot of momentum, playing well. And with such a short, goofy season, like you mentioned, the weather and everything, if they do end up 1st or even 2nd, I think that's a really good accomplishment for this team and definitely something to carry into the next couple of seasons here.
Yeah, I think they can. You mentioned it when you were reading the intro to this segment that they're playing Concordia today, their last non-conference matchup of the season. I know just before I saw the score and they lost the first game of the doubleheader 3-2. So hopefully they can bounce back in game 2 and at least split the doubleheader with Concordia. But the rest of the way out, with this being the last conference matchup, the rest obviously is conference play, and that's very important. They don't have any home games left, so the rest of their games are going to be on the road. They obviously have to win those conference games if they want to get into the tournament, because there's no automatic bid with, as you said, the conference tournament being canceled. They were ranked 25th out of 25 teams in the country coming into this weekend. How they play this week is definitely going to affect that ranking. I think as long as they can stay within the top 25, they can get on some type of streak and get into the top 20, then absolutely they're going to have a strong finish to the season and make the national tournament in hopes of playing in the World Series in Appleton.
I agree, and definitely the team ahead of the Whitewater has always been good in years past, so it's going to be a challenge for this Pointers team down the stretch, but I think if they keep up the pace of play that they've been playing right now, I think they have a chance there at the end of the season. So switching over now to softball, the Pointers softball team wrapped up their season on Sunday with a doubleheader split against UW River Falls with a 5-3 win in Game 1 and a 7-5 loss in Game 2. The Pointers finished the season overall with a record of 12-25 and going 1-13 in conference play. A difficult season, but what does this program need to do in order to get better as a whole for next year?
First year under a new coach is usually a tough one. Like we mentioned in the baseball segment, once the coach gets like the way he wants to run the program in, gets his own players in the recruiting class. Nothing against the players on the team now, but once he gets like his first few recruiting classes into the school, he'll be able to adapt and play his brand of softball. It's still a young team. I feel like we say that about almost every team here on campus. Young team, and there's obviously going to be growing pains with the young team, but they just got to stay the course. Season's almost over. Then go back to the drawing board, fix what wasn't working, and don't fix what was working, and just get ready for next season.
Jake?
Yeah, definitely a disappointing season, especially given that this team had a pretty decent start in their spring tournament down in Florida. When we were all stuck back here, getting pounded with snow. But yeah, Ben pretty much covered it all. This is a young team, first-year coach, and don't want to blame too much on the weather, but the weather really did have a pretty big factor into the season. You got to play and practice indoors for a majority of the season, and then they stick you outside, and you just got to start playing without any warm-up on the actual field or anything like that, hardly. And it's just really tough. So 1-13, definitely not ideal, but you can only move up from there. So
Exactly, and you can't really do too much worse than that unless you don't win any games at all. And we mentioned this in shows in the past before that this team is pretty young. There's a lot of underclassmen on this team that have stepped up this year. I know that there's been a few seniors that they are going to lose at the end of the year, and that means that the underclassmen now are going to step up next season as upperclassmen and really take control of the program. And Ben, as you mentioned it too, first year under the new head coach isn't always easy because you got to learn how to work together with each other and put good production up at the plate or up on the mound. It's definitely a challenge in most sports too here on campus.
And not being able to get outside is a challenge on the coaching staff too, because you can't truly assess who you have and what you have in your players and be able to move people around and shift things around in practice. So it's hard on the players, but it's also hard on the coaching staff who is not that familiar with these players.
Yeah.
Well, playing down in Florida is one thing. It's nice to get those early season games in, but I don't even think they've been able to practice at all on their home field on campus. And I know they're not going to play. They won't have any home games at all. They didn't have any in this season so far, and they won't have any home games at all this season because of drainage issues at the field. So that's got to affect them. You obviously want to play at home field advantage, not having to take that 2, 3, 4 hour bus ride to La Crosse, Whitewater, Platteville, all those other WEAC schools, and seniors not being able to have senior day at home's got to be a little bit of a sore spot too.
Yeah, and you're confined inside a space, inside a giant gym, and
it's nice they have the gym, but at the same time you want to get outside.
Yeah, and you're more free to move outside and work on things with defense, and also it provides more of a space where you can go out and actually practice more in game scenarios and such too. So the weather is definitely a factor of it, and as you mentioned too, Ben, first year coach. So this program has nowhere to go but up from here, I believe, and I think that'll be great to see.
Yeah, definitely.
So after this commercial break here, our first one, we'll be back to talk about the recent NFL draft and the Packers draft class. Welcome back to the show. The 2018 NFL Draft took place this past week at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, and the first round created a lot of hype and interesting turns. The Browns, with the number 1 overall pick, surprised many people by taking quarterback Baker Mayfield from Oklahoma, which it was then followed by running back Saquon Barkley going to the Giants, quarterback Sam Darnold going to the Jets, cornerback Denzel Ward going to the Browns at number 4, and defensive end Bradley Chubb going to Denver at number 5 to round out the top 5. 4 quarterbacks were taken in the top 10, with Mayfield, as mentioned before, going to the Browns, Darnold to the Jets, Josh Allen going to the Bills at number 7, and Josh Rosen going to the Cardinals at number 10. Looking at all these names and mentioning what has been going on in the draft, what surprised you guys from the first round? What did you guys notice from it that you could take away that gave you a little bit of a interesting turn on things?
Obviously, the Browns taking Baker Mayfield, number 1 overall. I know we're going to talk about that coming up, so I won't talk too much about him now. But the Browns taking Baker Mayfield, number 1 overall, and then taking Denzel Ward at number 4 when obviously Saquon was off the board getting drafted 2nd overall, but Bradley Chubb was still on the board. I think out of everything on the Browns defense, the secondary was one of their strong suits last year, and having Myles Garrett and Bradley Chubb opposite bookends on the defensive line would have been great. Not really a whole lot. Josh Allen going to the Bills once the draft kind of shook out the way it did. I kind of saw that come in. I like the Jets taking Sam Darnold at number 3 overall.
I think that's a good pick.
It really fits the Jets, and it gives them their franchise quarterback to build around.
I agree.
Great building piece for a young team.
Jacob, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because when Dorsey first got there, the first thing he said was our needs are at quarterback and cornerback. Those were his 2 biggest concerns, and then a lot of time went by, and a lot of people evaluated these players, and everybody decided that Bradley Chubb was probably the best fit to go there. But then it all comes down to it, and who does Dorsey select? A quarterback and a cornerback, just like he said he was going 2 months ago. So I think the most shocking thing to me, or surprising thing, was that Chubb then fell to the Broncos, which was basically a gift in my mind. It was a gift to the Broncos. Because
that defense is beefed up.
Is already scary, and I honestly do not think that they had it in their minds that they were going to get Chubb. I'm pretty sure they thought between the Giants and the 2 Browns picks, he was going to be gone. So I don't know who their number 1 guy was on the board if Chubb had been taken already, but they just got a gift, and that one kind of surprised me. Obviously, it was a no-brainer for them with Chubb sitting there.
Yeah, and I agree with what both of you guys said about what the Browns did and what happened with Denver at number 5. But I'm going to move down a little bit further in the draft, and I was kind of surprised that Dallas at their pick took a linebacker, actually, when their top need right now is actually on the receiving side, obviously with Des Bryant gone, and now Jason Witten actually just a day after the first round announcing that
unofficially retired.
Yeah, and now they don't have really anybody at the wide receiver core a position that can really help them out that Dak Prescott can throw to next season. So it's a little shaky, but they also needed some help on the defensive side too.
Yeah, everybody knows how big I've been on Calvin Ridley, and I really thought that
the Packers
was gonna. Well, I wanted the Packers to draft him, but I didn't think that was actually gonna happen. I thought for sure that Dallas would take him, and yet he fell 6 more spots. So I found that very interesting as well.
Yeah.
The end of the first round surprised me a little bit. The Ravens trading back in and taking Lamar Jackson, and then the Patriots as well taking 2 Georgia Bulldogs, Isaiah Wynn, and then Sonny Michel. Obviously protecting Tom Brady, keeping him upright and healthy is obviously goal number 1 every season for the Patriots, and adding Sonny Michel is a nice change of pace for Deion Lewis, a nice 1-2 punch.
I agree. So now moving into the talk about the quarterbacks, which of these quarterbacks mentioned will be NFL ready by week 1? Mayfield, Darnold, Rosen, and Allen. And also Jackson in there if you want to throw him into it from the first round. Which of these quarterbacks do you think will be ready?
Well, you said it perfectly. Lamar Jackson being the last. He's not going to start for the Ravens unless Joe Flacco gets hurt, so it'll be a year on the bench for Lamar Jackson to learn. I think Darnold's going to be, out of those quarterbacks drafted, Darnold, and then I'll throw in Josh Allen as well. I think the Bills will definitely have a quarterback competition between McCarron and Josh Allen. Darnold is definitely going to be the starting quarterback. Obviously, there's McCown there, so if Darnold struggles, they have a fallback plan. But
Bridgewater is there as well, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. So two fallback plans. Obviously, Bridgewater, he'll get his most substantial playing time since he had that horrific leg injury that almost ended his career. But I think Darnold's going to be all set to go week 1 for the New York Jets.
Yeah, in my mind, Darnold has to start. I honestly would not be surprised if none of these guys start week 1. I think
there is a possibility.
It is a definite possibility, and I think even Baker Mayfield probably won't make it past. I'm not sure when the Browns' bye week is, but if it's anywhere between 6 to 8 to 9 weeks, I'm guessing that's kind of like the spot that they're shooting for now.
Yeah.
But, as far as the soonest ones to get in, or the possibility that they're going to be starting game 1, I have to agree with Ben. It's got to be Sam Darnold and then probably Josh Allen.
Yeah, I agree. 3 for 3 on Sam Darnold being the most ready. Got to fix a few mechanical issues, but I think with rookie OTAs coming up, he's going to definitely work on fixing those up, and I think he'll definitely be the new face of the franchise for the Jets, and something that they can really build around for the next 5 years or so.
And just to throw this in there too, I mean, he is a California kid, a USC kid. He's played football in good weather for most of his career, so the earlier you start him, the more assimilated he can get to the game under the conditions he's used to playing in, because we've all seen some Jets games where, just like Packers games and Bills games, they got people there shoveling hours before the game because there's so much snow on the ground.
And it's cold.
And it's very cold. So if you keep him out for 4 to 6 weeks, and all of a sudden his first start is mid-December when it's 18 degrees out and there's 6 inches of snow on the ground, that could be very tough for a 20-year-old California kid.
Yeah, I agree.
And then real quick, two things with the Browns real quick. Jake talked about how John Dorsey had said earlier in the offseason their 2 needs were quarterback and cornerback. Earlier in the season, Hugh Jackson said Tyrod Taylor is the starting quarterback, so that kind of threw me for a loop why they drafted a quarterback when Hugh Jackson said Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starting quarterback. They could have gotten someone round 2, round 3, maybe Mason Rudolph from Oklahoma State who could be a backup, but it'll be interesting to see if Hugh sticks to that plan. Obviously, he's the head coach, so he has the last say, but it'll be interesting to see how Baker Mayfield and his ego handles possibly sitting on the bench. Obviously, he's a 2-time walk-on, but him being the number 1 pick in the draft and the top dog, be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, and now moving on to what the Packers are going to did in the draft. They certainly made some moves of their own in this draft. In the first round, the Packers traded away their 14th overall pick to the Saints for the 27th overall pick, a 5th-round pick, and the Saints' 2019 first-round pick. Green Bay would then trade picks with Seattle, earning the 18th overall pick and the 7th-round pick from the Seahawks. Packers GM Brian Gutekunst would use that 18th overall pick to draft Louisville cornerback Jaire Alexander to fix up a weak secondary. As the draft continued, the Packers worked on continuing to draft both sides of the ball, selecting cornerback Josh Jackson, linebackers Oren Burks and Kendall Donnerson, wide receivers Jamon Moore, Marcus Valdez-Scantling, and Equanimeous St. Brown, offensive lineman Cole Madison, punter J.K. Scott, defensive end James Looney, and long snapper Hunter Bradley. Looking at these lists of guys that are now going to be wearing the green and gold, do you see any potential from these players now that could really make an impact on the Packers for this upcoming season?
Yeah.
Jake, we'll start with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I really liked our first 2 picks in the cornerbacks. Going into the draft, a lot of people, myself included, thought we were going to pick more than 2 cornerbacks. I was sort of surprised to see 3 wide receivers picked. I thought maybe 2 for sure, but Alexander and Josh Jackson are both going to be able to come in and contribute from day one. They're both good at coverage. They're both ball hawkers. They're both pretty quick. I know that Josh Jackson had a slightly slower 40 time, but in coverage they're both fast. And it's funny that Alexander wasn't really getting much heat for his name just wasn't really popping up for the Packers until pretty much draft week is when I first started seeing it. I had him mocked to go to the Packers, but I also think that Oren Burks is going to make a big difference. I think he's got really good hands. I think he needs to put on a little bit of weight. He's only 209 pounds. People at his position usually play a little bit heavier than that, but obviously he's young, and he's going to get to work with the Packers training staff coming up here. So I think those 3 are going to be significant, and then I hope one of the 3 receivers, too, works out.
Yeah, man. I really like the Packers draft. We'll talk about grades and whatnot later. But the first two picks, Alexander and Jackson, have a chance to come in and contribute from day one. Those two, Kevin King, Tremont Williams, Devon House, Lindsey Pipkins, all those other guys, I think the King, Jair Alexander, and Josh Jackson have a chance to be a great cornerback tandem. I like Oren Burks. From what I saw, highlights, looking up on YouTube and what they showed during the draft on TV, he hits hard. He's a sound tackler, which the Packers definitely need. Their tackling hasn't been the best the past few seasons, but I'm definitely excited. And the return of Puntergate, I know everybody's thrilled about that.
Thought we were done with that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about all the wide receivers because you never know what you can find in the wide receiver group. Donald Driver was a 7th round pick, and we all know how great he was. But Jamon Moore, I'm excited to see. I think he kind of fits into the mold of Devontae Adams and the Devontae Adams, Greg Jennings mold. And we all know how great they were with the Packers, and Devontae Adams still with the team, obviously. But I'm excited. And Aaron Rodgers, the more weapons he has to play with, the more people he feels comfortable throwing the ball to, the more options for the Packers offense, and the deadlier it can be. I can't wait. It's gonna be a fun season.
Yeah, I think a lot of Packers fans are excited. And just to mention here real quick, I like the cornerback picks. They were very good. Props to Gutekunst for getting 2 of his top cornerbacks that he was looking at in the draft. But also, Oren Burks, definitely on the outside pass rush, is going to be a big help to Matthews, because Matthews is not the same player that he is now. And that offensive or outside linebacker position has been a struggle in years past. So I think Oren Burks has the potential to definitely step up there and become a valuable player in that Packers defense.
Yeah, and just as a whole, looking a little bit past the actual players themselves, I think that Gutekunst and his team did a great job in this draft. You kind of touched on it, but we received the Saints' first-round pick next year.
Yeah.
First-round picks next year.
That's big.
Picks. That is huge. We haven't done something like that in a long time. And even if the Saints win the Super Bowl this next year and we get pick number 32, like, who cares? That's
still a first-round
awesome
pick.
It's a first-round pick. And we only had to move back 4 spots, ultimately. We got our number 1 guy who we were after. So, and we got Josh Jackson at 45, which a lot of people were saying we should pick him at 14.
I don't think
I'm
that
on
would
record saying, that was a bad idea, but we got him at 45, and so I just think it was awesome. Good draft all around.
I think Gutekunst made some very smart moves. So just real quick right here, touching on the grades. What grade would you give this Packers draft class this year? Ben, you real quick?
B+, A-, around that range. It was good. I would have liked if they would have taken a couple more, maybe another defensive lineman, defensive end, and maybe 1 or 2 more linebackers. And a tight end as well.
Yeah.
Just throw that in there.
Yeah, I'm going to say A- as well, because I really like all the moves that I just talked about a second ago. So I'm ranking them really high because of that. But the 3 wide receivers, I'm hoping that there's some potential too. But inevitably, if you draft 3 wide receivers and you have as many on the team already as we do, 1 or probably even 2 of these guys might end up cut. So I would have taken a chance on another defensive player as well instead of the wide receiver. But all in all, A-.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the B+ as well. Drafting 2 cornerbacks with the first 2 picks that the Packers had, definitely a good move. But maybe they could have gotten into the pass rush, outside pass rush a little earlier, I think. But for the most part, I think it went pretty well for Green Bay, and hopefully the season's gonna go well. So after our next commercial break, we'll be back to look at the NHL and NBA playoffs.
The 7th largest book printer in North America, is hiring students for the semester. We are 100% employee-owned and located right here in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. All shifts currently hiring, with jobs starting at $10.80 an hour. Hours are flexible. For more information, contact the Warzala HR department.
Welcome back to the locker room here on SBTV. The NHL playoffs have been a lot of fun to watch as the first round is over and the second round of the playoffs is now underway. Taking a look at the beginning now in the Western Conference, the Golden Knights swept the Kings in 4 games, and the Sharks did the same to the Ducks in their series matchup. The Jets took down the Wild in 5 games, and the Predators held on in 6 games against the Avalanche. In the Eastern Conference, the Capitals overcame a 2-0 series deficit to defeat the Blue Jackets, and the Penguins took down in-state rival Philadelphia 4 games to 2. The Lightning won in 5 games over the Devils, and the Bruins held on to win an exciting Game 7 over the Maple Leafs. Guys, your thoughts on the NHL playoffs so far, and who you think could go to the Stanley Cup Finals there in June when that comes up?
In my opinion anyway, not really any big surprises in the first round. Played out how I thought it would. The second round, I think minus the Knights obviously have a 2-1 lead over the Sharks after their overtime win last night. But besides that, every other series is tied at 1 game apiece. I think all the second round series are going to go to 6, if not 7 games. Man, there's just so much to like about playoff hockey.
I agree.
The intensity gets ratcheted up. You see the players being more physical, finishing their checks into the boards. Maybe a little bit of chirpiness after the whistle, a little bit. Nice to see that the refs are letting the players play a little bit, not being so quick with that whistle. But man, it's going to be fun to watch. The East, I think it's going to be the Penguins for a 3rd straight year. The West, I have no idea. The Sharks obviously had a poor Game 1, came back in Game 2, back and forth with the Knights in Game 3 last night, overtime loss for the Sharks. You have the Sharks, you have the Knights obviously, you have Nashville. I think it's going to come down to the Sharks, the Knights, or the Predators repping the Western Conference in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Jake, your thoughts? You're a big hockey guy yourself.
Yeah, I'll try and keep this short, but everyone knows I'm a big hockey fan, played my whole life, and I guess the thing that has jumped out to me most in these playoffs is the goaltender play all the way across. In the Vegas' first series, they swept 4 games. Marc-Andre Fleury, who is...
He's a monster.
He's the best goalie in the league. He's on his way to, if they win this year, it'll be 4 cups, 1-3 with the Penguins. Anyway, he's phenomenal. He had 127 saves on 130 shots, 2 shutouts, 98% save percentage. And this guy last night, he kept the Knights in the game all night long. He had like 3 or 4 amazing glove saves. He's the best player in the NHL right now. So moving on from that, I think that Sharks and Knights series is the best, most competitive series going on right now, despite the 7-0 blowout in the first game. But I agree with Ben. I think all of these teams are so evenly matched. They're all going to go 6 or 7 games. As far as the Penguins go, they are playing a rival in the Capitals for a 3rd time in a row. A lot of people think this is the year that the Capitals have their number. I just can't buy into that.
It's been tough for the Capitals fans these past few years.
It has been tough. The great Sidney Crosby, and of course you got Matt Murray and net. So many other players on that team that you could mention too. But
Phil Kessel possibly.
Oh yeah, Phil Kessel, Malkin. I mean, the list goes on. And anyway, I think the Penguins are going to beat the Capitals tonight soundly. The first game back in Pittsburgh, and I think they're going to go on to win the series. And ultimately, I would love to see a Pittsburgh versus Las Vegas series for a lot of reasons, because I think Las Vegas deserves to have a chance at the Cup, but also I want to see the Matt Murray versus Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah, that'd be
a great story. I'll just keep mine short real quick. I think the playoffs are wide open to anybody, but in the East, I think actually this is going to be a bit surprising. I think the Lightning actually will probably sneak in there and represent the East. And in the West, I think the Predators are going to go back to the Stanley Cup again. It's just looking to be something like that again.
And both those teams have 2 of the best goalies in the entire league, both nominated for the Best Goalie of the Year award. So.
Yep. Well, we'll see. Playoff hockey is always the best kind of hockey. So now looking at a different sport with playoffs, the NBA playoffs are also underway, as well as the first round wrapped up this past weekend. In the Eastern Conference, the Bucks lost in 7 games against the Celtics, and the 76ers dominated the Heat to win in 5 games. The 1-seeded Raptors took care of the Wizards in 6 games, while the Cavs won a wild series against the Pacers in 7 games. In the West, the Rockets rolled over the Timberwolves in their first-round matchup, while the Jazz put on a performance to beat the Thunder in 6. The Pelicans swept the Trailblazers in 4 games, and the defending champion Warriors handled the Spurs, winning in 5 games. Guys, real quick, what has stood out to you guys from the playoffs this year, and will the Bucks be back in the postseason for next year?
Oh, God. I don't know where to start. First, how god-awful the officiating's been.
Yeah, very questionable. Very questionable.
I shouldn't be surprised, but obviously LeBron getting all the calls. LeBron actually hurting himself flopping the other night. Maybe that's a little bit of karma.
A lot of drama.
Yeah, drama with LeBron. Who would have thought? But I'm not really impressed with Russell Westbrook. The way his attitude, the way he played, he played good, he played well, but his attitude, that really bothers me. Going after the Jazz fans, complaining all about that stuff, and fans taking videos, pictures of all the Thunder players coming off the court after the game. None of the other Thunder players had a problem with it, but Russell Westbrook, being the complainer and the moody person that he is, had a problem with it. The OKC fans did that to Donovan Mitchell when they were playing in Oklahoma City. Mitchell did nothing, so that speaks to Westbrook's lack of maturity. So I guess Westbrook's lack of maturity, poor officiating, LeBron getting everything going his way once again, that's what stood out to me, although I don't think anybody should be surprised by any of that.
Yeah. Jake, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that have stood out for me. Most of all have been the Utah Jazz and the way they're playing. I mean, we knew this was a good team going into the playoffs. In the West, there was only 2-game difference between the 3 and the 7 seed.
Yep.
But the way that they handled Oklahoma City really just kind of opened my eyes and kind of wowed me. I think Paul George is gone for sure next year. I don't think there's any chance that he comes
Melo
back.
might be gone too.
Melo said he doesn't want to take a bench role, and that's the only role he's going to be getting.
Melo also is guaranteed $28 million next year if he stays, which is not a luxury
Yeah.
that Paul George has. So I don't know. I could see Melo milking out one more year and then going into free agency. But on top of that, the Celtics and the 76ers is a series to keep your eyes on.
That's going
Yeah.
7 games.
Yeah,
that should be
got
good.
to. And I think the 76ers were just feeling pretty good about themselves, and
They're definitely trusting the process over there in Philly.
and they went into the game maybe tiny bit overlooking Boston, and Boston
Punched them in the mouth.
they were like, don't not take us serious. So that's going to be a fun series to watch.
Yeah, and the Bucks, even despite losing that way that they did in Game 7, did put up a little bit of a fight there against the Celtics there in the last couple of games. But ultimately, I figured that the Bucks were not going to be able to pull it off. It's a bit disappointing as Bucks fans to know that they came very close again to possibly winning a first-round series in 17 years. But for the most part, there's just a lot of things that they need to do as well in order to get back to the postseason and give Giannis an opportunity to get further in the postseason.
They'll be there next year.
Real quick to answer your question, we're a little pressed for time, but will the Bucks make the playoffs next season? Not if they don't make drastic changes. There's no reason on God's green earth Prunty should be the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Definitely not.
Terrible. There's no reason Eric Bledsoe should be on this roster. There's no reason John Henson should be on this roster. Delly was too hot and cold. They have Tony Snell.
Jabari's going to be gone too.
Jabari's lack of effort, plus his complaining and only playing when he feels like it. There's a lot of changes need to be made with the Bucks if they want any hope of making the playoffs next year.
I agree. A bit of a reloading year next year.
We'll see.
I think they'll be there. I think in the Eastern Conference they'll find a way. Even if it's a 7-8 seed again, they'll sneak away in, and we'll get to host a playoff game in the new building.
That'd be great. Definitely looking forward to next season. So after our final commercial break, we'll be back to do a round of buy or sell. Welcome back to the show for the final segment, also known as the classic buy or sell. First one up, Baker Mayfield will start week 1 for the Browns. Buy or sell? Jake, we'll start with you.
Week 1, I'm going to sell that. I think he's a really intelligent football player, actually, despite what a lot of other people think, and that's why I can't make the Johnny Manziel comparison, because Baker can read a defense, and Johnny openly admits he never could. But week 1, I don't think so.
Ben?
Hard sell. Not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to sell that too. He's got a lot of maturity issues he needs to fix up, but he's also got a better work ethic than Manziel for sure. Next one up, the Capitals will defeat the Penguins in the second round of the playoffs. Buy or sell? Ben?
Sell.
Easy sell?
Real quick, sell.
Yeah,
it might go 6-7 games, but the Penguins are going to come out on top.
The Penguins are definitely going to beat the Caps, just like they always have, just like they always will. Sorry, Ovechkin.
It's the final show of the semester, and it's always nice to make things interesting. I'm gonna buy that actually. Maybe the Cavs might have a little bit of something in the tank there to give the Penguins a fight up against them. But it's definitely gonna come down to Game 7 for sure.
And
so
they have home ice advantage.
we'll see. Next question up: the Brewers will make some kind of market move this season. Buy or sell?
Buy. I think they need to get another starting pitcher.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot before the season. It's still the concern now. Definitely get yourself a starting pitcher. They've been playing really well lately, and hopefully that carries on, but pitcher for sure.
Yeah, I got to buy that too. Definitely got to give some credit to Josh Hader, though, especially with how well he's been pitching
the way
recently.
He's been pitching, he's going to be in Washington, D.C. the second week of July for the All-Star game. Absolute stud.
He set 2 MLB all-time records with his performance last night. So.
Yeah, Brewers fans definitely got some interesting stuff to look forward to the rest of the way. And now for the last segment, or for the last scenario, the NBA Finals will be between the Warriors and Cavs again. Buy or sell?
I think we talked about this at the beginning of the NBA season back in the fall, and I said if it was Warriors Cavs again, I'd be taking a nap in June.
Yeah.
I'm not watching that for like a 5th, 6th, whatever it's been.
4th straight year in a row.
I hope. Buy. Buy. I just don't want it to happen. I don't want to watch that again.
I'm going to sell it. I think that somebody somehow finds a way around Cleveland in the East. I've been saying even all this season up until recently that the Cavs are going to find a way to get it done, but just ever since that roster change, they went like 500. There's not really any spark out there. LeBron has to do literally everything. And they almost just lost in the first round, so I think between 76ers, Celtics, Raptors, whoever it might be, I think somebody's going to knock off the King this year.
Yeah, and I'm going to sell that too. I think the Warriors probably will get past the Pelicans, but I think the Rockets are going to defeat them in the Western Conference Finals.
So it could be neither of these teams.
Probably neither of these teams. That's the beauty of playoff sports. So we'll see how that goes come more playoff time down the way in May. So that's all the time we have for today here on the show. Thank you to Ben and Jake for joining me today on the show, and a big thank you to our technical staff for making all of this possible. Be sure to check us out on Facebook at SBTV UWSP Television, or follow us on Twitter at SBTV_UWSP. Also visit the UWSP homepage to locate all your Pointer athletic information. As mentioned before, this is the final show of the semester. We'd like to thank you guys for watching the show this year, and Ben and Jake, enjoy your summer break.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I can't wait to be
great
back
year.
in the fall.
Yep, looking forward to next year. Enjoy your summer.
Yeah, we'll see you all back in the fall, and we'll see you next semester here on The Locker Room.